Hi friends, it's Kathy from Sycamore and Cotton. I've got new projects to show you, so let's get started. This first project is going to be an upcycle of this metal tray that I thrifted recently. I started by taking it outside and giving it a good coat of white spray paint to cover up the design. And then I decided to paint the inside rim in gold. And this is just a base gold. I'll end up going over it in rub and buff to get a better coverage and a better, more antique look a little later on. Next, I decided to decoupage this beautiful paper down. I don't know if it's rice paper or decoupage paper, but I had just ordered it, and I love the Harlequin design and have never used it or before in any of my work, and saw this paper and decided to order it, and really didn't have a plan for it, but here it is going down on this tray. And what I'm doing here is I place the paper down, and I'm just using my fingernail to go around the edge so that I'll know how large to cut out this paper and can cut out the circular shape that is needed. That's a trick that I learned from fellow YouTubers, and it works really well. So now I am ready to place the decoupage paper down. As you can see, it fits pretty nicely. I didn't get the edges perfectly, but it fits in there, and I'm going to decoupage now just using regular decoupage adhesive. And I start by just lifting the top edge, putting the decoupage or Mod Podge down just there at the top, and then I just work my way down, working it into the edges, smoothing it down, working out any bubbles, and then also removing any of the Mod Podge that happen to get on the gold. And then I do the middle section by lifting it from the bottom, getting that on there really nice and smoothing it out. And then I do the bottom half of it, or the bottom third, and just working it in along the edges, removing any of the Mod Podge that I got on the sides, and smoothing out any air bubbles and wrinkles. And here I am applying the top coat of Mod Podge to protect the surface and get ready to move on with the next step, which is applying this transfer. I believe this is from the Brocante transfer book from IOD. And I love this floral. I have been saving it for a special project and decided it works perfectly for this tray, which, by the way, this tray came from the dollar store. It still had the sticker on it. I thrifted it, but it had originally come from the dollar store. So it's a little lightweight, and you'll see something that I do in a little bit that gives it a little more substance. But anyway, for now I am working this transfer down. It goes down really easily, and right there I'm cutting out part of the leaf. I didn't want it going up the sides of the inside rim, so I'm cutting it out, and I'll place it somewhere else on the tray. But if you've never worked with transfers before, you commit to where you're going to put them down on your project, and then using the tool that is provided when you purchase the transfer pack, then you just go through rubbing it down, pulling up the carrier sheet, and smoothing everything out. I love transfers. They work. They typically go down really easily as long as you've followed the instructions for the surface. And they really enhance the overall outcome of your project. They just really knock it up a notch, in my opinion. And next you're going to see me applying rub and buff to the inside rim of the tray. Um, I, I like this color rub and buff. It really just gives a more quality look than the paint. I put the paint down so it would be a good base to cover up with the rub and buff. And I'm going around that. But what you see me doing with the brush is just stippling along the edges because there were places that I did not get a good smooth cut on the decoupage paper, and there were places where it wasn't perfectly round, and that showed. So I decided to try to cover that up. I don't know if you can see it or not. Those places, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I decided just to give it a kind of edging around the Harlequin paper to disguise that. And it worked pretty well, I think. It kind of just gave it a little bit of maybe an aged look. By the way, I have no clear vision of what I'm doing to this tray. I knew that I wanted to use that paper on it, and I knew that I wanted the inside to rim to be gold. But other than that, I really didn't know what I was going to do. So now I've decided to paint the outside edge of the tray black. But the only black paint that I have is acrylic paint. So I took it outside and sprayed it with a clear matte spray, hoping that that would help this paint to adhere. But I also mixed up my own version of chalk paint with some of this black acrylic by using calcium carbonate. I often do this when I have regular paints and I want to turn it into a chalk paint. I keep calcium carbonate on hand. It is the best option that I've found for making my own chalk paint. I have tried baby powder, I have tried plaster of Paris. Neither of those worked as well for me as the calcium carbonate. So just in case you ever want to make your own, there's a recipe online that tells you how much paint, how much calcium carbonate, and then a little bit of water to add in with that as well. And I have found it goes on so smoothly, and it really does give that chalk paint effect that it paints on anything and adheres well. And yeah, I like it a lot. Now I am applying Rub and Buff to the handle, and you'll be able to see there that I end up getting that on the black, but that's okay because I'll come back in with a smaller brush and cover that up with more black paint. And as a reminder, I'm not 100% certain what I'm doing. I do decide to do the metal part of the handle in gold, and then I'll come back in with black paint and do the handle itself, which is wood. Or a resin maybe, I'm not sure, but it looks like wood. And then I paint that in black. As I mentioned earlier, this tray was lacking in substance in terms of, its weight. So I decided to cut out a wood round from a 1/4 inch plywood and glue that into the bottom. It wasn't a perfect circle. I don't cut very well, so I used spackle to fill in where there was a little bit of gap along the edge. Then I painted it gold, and now you see me applying a transfer. I just thought that would be a nice added touch for the bottom. And a few more touch-ups and a coat of black wax over the black and gold areas, and this tray is finished. Let me know what you think about it. I am thinking of maybe applying a crackling medium over the harlequin and floral part. I don't know. Tell me what you would do. Thank you so much for taking time to watch this video. I have been overwhelmed by the number of people who are watching my videos, commenting on my videos, and subscribing to my channel, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. If you haven't liked or subscribed yet, please take a minute and consider doing that now. It really helps me grow my channel. I'm getting close to 1,000 subscribers, which really overwhelms me and gives me inspiration to continue doing this. So if you haven't already, please consider, and if you have already, thank you so much. Now on to the next project, which is this set of wooden candlestick holders. I thrifted these a while back, so I pulled them out of my stash, and there you see me removing that a brass or metal piece that helps hold the candlestick in place. The other one did not have it, so it was missing it. I actually have a topper to go on these, so that will not be necessary. And it being on there, it was actually going to interfere with the topper laying flat. I am stepping out of my usual box and using a different color on these candlesticks than I normally would. I'm inspired by Rachel at the Eclectic Cottage. I've seen her using this color a few times, and it inspired me, and I happen to be at a peddler's market where DIY paint is sold, and just on a whim decided to get it a while back, and these candlesticks are the first thing that I'm using them on. I really like the color. It's just not, something that's in my usual stash of colors. It's a really fun color, and it was also really fun to step out of the box that I have worked myself into, or that I do work myself into sometimes regarding color choices. I used 2 to 2.5 coats of paint on each candlestick, and I attached the tops on using Titebond Quick and Thick, I think it's called, and also a little bit of hot glue as well to have a fast adhesion. That quick and Thick is pretty fast, but I needed something to keep it from moving around so I could work on it. My next step is to apply a clear wax, but as you can see, it's not really clear because my brush is dirty, but that's okay because I'm applying this clear wax so that I can then apply a dark wax and wipe back as much as I want to, because the clear wax makes it easier to remove the dark wax. So I think if I had just left it with the clear wax, I think I might have liked that just as well. But anyway, I put the dark wax on, take back as much as I can, and it's still a little darker than I want it to be. I go through with a small clean brush and pull out some of the dark wax in the crevices. I want it to stay in the crevices, but I don't want it to be as thick as it is. One reason is it takes longer to dry, and any other steps it might smear. So I kind of move that wax around and get some of it out of there. And next I am applying a white wax, and this is actually a wax that I made. I have a clear wax that I mixed with a color called Plaster from Waverly, and I'm putting that on. And There you saw me holding them next to each other just to kind of get an idea of what they look like. I don't know if that was, I might have been going too fast for you to see that, but anyway, this is how I end up doing it. I'm not so certain that I love it this way. I think, again, if I had just put the clear wax on to start with, especially with that dirty brush, it might have been enough. But as it is, it's not bad. I'll put them in the booth and see if they sell. And if not, I can always do a different finish on them. But I am happy that I stepped out of the box, tried a new color, and let's see what other people think about it. Let me know what you think. Now on to the third and final project for this video, which is giving this green weather vane candle holder a new look. I started by taking it outside, hosing it down really well. It was quite dusty. It had been in my stash not too long, but in the garage it gets pretty dusty pretty easily. So as with everything, I always start by washing it down really well. And this is a fairly fast forward project. After it dried, I spray painted the inside as well as I could with white spray paint. And I'm starting by putting that black homemade chalk paint on the roof. And that is a cutout design on top of that roof. So I want to be careful and not put it on too thick because I don't want it running inside where I had already spray painted white. So I want the whole inside of this house to be white. The outside body of it will also be white, but the roof is going to be black. So I'm being really careful in applying that paint, and then I decide to pull out my sponge dauber and apply it, and that actually worked really well. Next, I put some rub and buff on my fingers and start applying that to the rooster and the weather vane, and I'm able to get quite a lot of it on just using my fingers, but I do end up having to pull out a brush to get down into the more detail areas. But if you haven't guessed it already, I love using rub and buff. It comes in different colors. This one is antique gold, and I got it in a pack, I think, of 4 or 5 different shades of gold, and then one of those was also a bronze color, which I really haven't used very much, and I'm not sure that I will. Who knows, though? I may use it at some point and decide I love it. But anyway, here I am applying the gold with the brush to get the details. And then I go on then to work on the inside and the outside of the house, painting it white using Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint. And again, I'm using a dauber to stipple that on there to give it a textured effect. And really, that's all this project took was the 3 paints, a good wash, the 3 paints, and letting it dry well, and some touch-up work on it, and it was finished. So let me know what you think about it. I think out of the 3 projects, this is my favorite. But what do you think? And that's it for this week's video. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.